The original recording of Joanne's adventure unfortunately was lost. This recording is the beginning of her journey, retold by a weary traveler to a band of passing merchants. Rumors. Only a foolhardy adventurer would embark upon such a perilous quest without first finding out as much as possible about the mountain and its treasures. Before your arrival at the foot of the Firetop Mountain, you spent several days with the townsfolk of a local village, some 2 days' journey from the base. Being a likable sort of people, you found it easy to get on with the local peasants. Although they told you many stories about the mysterious warlock sanctuary, you could not feel sure at all, or indeed any, of these were based on the fact. The villagers had seen many adventurers pass through on their way to the mountain, but very few ever returned. The journey ahead was extremely dangerous, that you knew for certain. Of those who returned to the village, none contemplated going back to the Firetop Mountain. There seemed to be some truth in the rumor that the warlock's treasure was stored in a magnificent chest with 2 locks, and the keys to these locks were guarded by various creatures within the dungeons. The warlock himself was a sorcerer of great power. Some described him as old, others as young. Some said his power came from an enchanting deck of cards, others from a silky black gloves that he wore. The entrance to the mountain was guarded by a pack of warty-faced goblins, stupid creatures, fond of their food and drink. Towards the inner chambers, the creatures became more fearsome. To reach the inner chambers you would have to cross a river. The ferry service was regular, but the ferryman enjoyed a good barter, so you should have saved a gold piece for the trip. The locals also encourage you to keep a good map of your wanderings, for without a map you would end up hopelessly lost within the mountain. When it finally came to your day of leaving, the whole village turned out to wish you a safe journey. Tears came to the eyes of many women, young and old alike. You couldn't help wondering whether they were tears of sorrow shed by eyes which would never see you life again. At last, your 2-day hike is over. You unsheath your sword, lay it on the ground and sigh with relief as you lower yourself down on the mossy rocks to sit for a moment's rest. You stretch, rub your eyes and finally look up at Firetop Mountain. The very mountain itself looks menacing. The steep face in front of you looks to have been savaged by the claws of some gargantuan beast. Sharp rocky crags jut out at natural angles. At the top of the mountain, you can see the eerie red coloring, probably some strange vegetation, which has given the mountain its name. Perhaps no one will ever know exactly what grows up there, as climbing the peak must surely be impossible. Your quest lies ahead of you. Across the clearing is a dark cave entrance. You pick up your sword, get to your feet and consider what dangers may lie ahead of you. But with determination, you thrust the sword home into the scabbard and approach the cave. You peer into the gloom to see dark, slimy walls with pools of water on the stone floor in front of you. The air is cold and dank. You light your lantern and step warily into the blackness. Cobwebs brush your face and you hear scurrying of tiny feet. Rats, most likely. You set off into the cave. After a few yards, you arrive at the junction. Will you turn west or east? This passageway soon comes to an end at the locked wooden door. You listen at the door but hear nothing. Will you try to charge the door down? Or would you rather turn around and go back to the junction? You charge the door with your shoulder. The door bursts open, and you fall headlong into a room. But your heart jumps as you realize you are not landing on the floor, but plunging down a pit of some kind. Luckily, the pit is not particularly deep, and you land in a heap less than 2 meters down. You lose stamina for your bruises, climb out of the pit into your room, and leave through the door, heading westwards. You arrive back at the junction in the passage. You look left to see the cave entrance in the dim distance, but walk straight on. There is a right-hand turn to the north in the passage. Cautiously you approach a sentry post on the corner, and as you look in, you can see a strange goblin-like creature in leather armor asleep at his post. You try to tiptoe past him. You are lucky. He doesn't wake up and remains snoring loudly. To your left, on the west face of the passage, there is a rough-cut wooden door. You listen at the door and can hear a rasping sound which may be some sort of creature snoring. Do you want to open the door, or you wish to press on northwards? The door opens to reveal a small, smelly room. In the center of the room is a rickety wooden table on which stands a lit candle. Underneath the table is a small wooden box. Asleep on a straw mattress in the far corner of the room is a short, stocky creature with an ugly, warty face. The same sort of creature that you found asleep on the sentry post. He must be the guard for the night watch. You may either return to the corridor and press on northwards, or creep into the room and try to take the box without waking the creature. You are lucky, he does not wake up. You leave the room and open the box in the passage. Inside you find a single piece of gold and a small mouse which must have been the creature's pet. You keep the coin and release the mouse, which scurries off down the passageway. Further up the passage, along the west wall, you see another door. You listen at it but hear nothing. Would you like to try opening the door? Or do you want to continue going northwards? Further up the passage on the west wall you see another similar door. You listen at the door and grimace to hear the worst singing you have ever heard in your life. Do you want to go into the room and investigate this hideous din? Or walk on up the passageway? You eventually arrive at the end of the passage, at the three-way junction. You may turn either to the west or to the east. The passageway runs straight for several meters and then ends at the wooden door. You listen at the door and hear angry shouting coming from within. Will you investigate or turn back? You open the door to a large room. A large chair behind a solid-looking table suggests to you that someone or something of rank uses this room. A chest in the center catches your eye. In a corner of the room stands a man-sized creature with a warty face, standing over a smaller creature of similar face. With the whip in his hand, the orc chieftain has been beating his servant, who is whimpering beneath him. Will you attack them both? Or spring at the chieftain and hope that his servant will aid you? Or leave the room and head back for the junction? As you spring at the chieftain, his servant rises to his feet, picks up a hefty wooden stick and joins the melee. But to your disappointment, he attacks you. Ungrateful wretch! Seeing this, you may escape through the door down the corridor, or continue the fight. The battle commences, and both Orc Chieftain and his servant were defeated. The green blood of the dead orcs smells foul as it seeps from their bodies. You step around the corpses and investigate the chest. It is a sturdy affair made of strong oak and iron, and it is firmly locked. You may try to smash the lock with your sword, or leave it alone and go through the open door. The lock was obviously inadequate. It flies off and lands on the floor several meters away. You lift up the heavy lid, and your eyes widen as you see the gold sheen coming from within. A fair number of gold pieces are inside. In one corner lies a small black bottle with a tight glass stopper, containing a liquid of some kind. Also in the chest is a silky black glove. But as you are admiring this treasure, you hear a soft click and wince in pain as a small dart shoots forward into your stomach. You sink to the floor. You pull the dart out and decide to bandage the wound. This gives some relief, but you still feel weak. You decide to take it easy and examine the contents of the chest, but if you wish, you may eat some provisions here. There are 25 gold pieces, and the label on the bottle shows it to be a potion of invisibility. Good for 1 dose. The glove is a mystery. You may put any or all of those items in your rucksack and leave the room. You arrive back at the junction in the passage and walk straight on eastwards. You arrive at another junction in the passage. You may either go northwards or continue eastwards. You see a well-used door on the right-hand, east side of your passageway. With your ear to the keyhole, you listen and hear a man screaming for help from inside. Will you open the door or walk on? The door is locked. You may try to charge it down by rolling. However, you were not skilled enough and the door remains locked. You lost some stamina for bruised shoulder and you progress up the passage. Further up the passage, you see a door in the east wall. You listen hard but can hear no sound. Do you want to open the door to investigate? Or do you want to continue up the passage? The door is firmly locked. You may try to force it open, or you may continue along the corridor. You charge the door, hitting it squarely with your shoulder. You were skilled enough to open this door, however, and you continue to go inside. The door splits along its length, and you can wrench the timbers apart to let yourself in. A torch hangs from one wall, lighting up a small armory room stocked with swords, shields, helmets, daggers, breastplates, and the like. You examine the weaponry and found nothing appearing superior to your own sword. However, a circular iron shield with a golden crescent at its center catches your eye. You pick it up and feel its weight on your arm. If you wish to take its shield, it will aid you in battles by helping to fend off wound damage inflicted by creatures on you. You now leave the room and continue up the corridor. On the east wall of the passage, you see another door, this time made of solid metal. Listening at the door, you hear the sound of tortured screams coming from within. If you wish to try opening the door, or do you decide to ignore this room and continue up the corridor? You arrive at the end of the passage, where it meets another going east-west. But an iron portcullis blocks your way and no amount of charging is going to budge it. On the wall to your right are two levers, and it seems likely that these levers have something to do with raising the portcullis. Do you wish to pull the right lever or the left lever? To your horror, you realize that this dummy lever was a trap. Although it looked like a handle, it was in fact a wax-coated sword blade, and it has now cut your hand badly. You've used your sword hand, and thus your fighting prowess have been severely hampered. Now, you wish to pull the right lever instead. You hear a deep rumbling noise, and the ground begins to shudder. Slowly and noisily, the portcullis rises to the ceiling. You may now walk to the junction. Will you turn west or east? Cautiously you creep along the passageway. After a short time it turns sharply to the north. At the corner there is a bench of solid wood, and above the bench a sign reads, "Rest ye here, weary traveller." Here you may stop and eat provisions if you wish, or you want to continue. As you sit on the bench and eat your food, you begin to feel deeply relaxed, and the aches from your body seem to be soothing themselves away. This resting place is enchanted. When you're ready to continue, move along the passage. You arrive at another junction in the passageway. If you would like to turn west, or would you like to go east? After a few meters you reach another three-way junction. You may go either northwards or eastwards. The passageway ends in a sturdy wooden door. If you want to try opening it, you can do so. Or if you want to go back to the junction and try another route, you can do so as well. You arrive back at the junction, and this time you turn northwards. The passage ahead ends at the sturdy door. You listen but hear nothing. You try the handle, it turns, and you enter the room. As you look around, you hear a loud cry from behind you, and swing round to see a wild man leaping towards you wielding a large battle axe. He is the mad barbarian, and you must fight him. After a long fight, you've defeated the barbarian. A search of the room reveals nothing of any value, although an old box in the corner contains a wooden mallet and 5 short stumps of wood, sharpened at one end. You may take this if you wish, and continue now to live through the door in the north wall. The door opens into a short corridor which ends several meters ahead of another door, similar to the one you have just come through. You listen and hear nothing. You try the handle and it turns, allowing you into another room of similar size. But this room is splendidly decorated with the polished marble floor and rough walls painted white. On each of the 4 walls hangs a painting, and there is another door in the north wall. You can either go straight through the room, or you may stop to look at the paintings. The paintings are portraits of men. Your spine shivers as you read the nameplate under the one on the west wall. It is that of Zagor, the warlock whose treasure you are seeking. You look at his portrait and realize you are pitting yourself against an awesome adversary. You have the feeling that you are being watched and notice the piercing eyes following you as you move. You find yourself drawn towards his portrait and your fear rises. Do you have the courage to try to combat the warlock? You may either leave through the north door straight away, but that would be treated as an escape, or you may look through your pack of weapons to use against the warlock's power. You try various items of equipment against the gaze of the painting, but none seem to work. You try to plunge a wooden stake into the painting. As you attack the portrait with the wooden stake, you feel the wrench of pain in your wrist. You are forced by some unseen power to drop the stake. You decide to run and leave through the north door. You open the door into a narrow passage and follow it northwards. Some meters up the passageway, it turns to the east, then turns to the north. However, at this second bend, there's a small alcove in the rock. It seems convenient hiding place in a large rock forms a comfortable seat. You may stop here and eat your provisions if you wish. When you have rested, continue northwards. The passageway ends in another wooden door. This time a small one with the carved bone handle. You listen but hear nothing coming from the inside. You try the handle and the door opens into a pear-shaped room with a rough stone floor making walking across it somewhat awkward. In one corner of the room is a pile of rubble, mainly stones and dust, but there's also two odd-shaped pieces of wood and a length of rope. A door in the north wall leads on. You decide to study the length of rope. You pick up the rope. It looks normal. In fact, it looks as it might be quite useful. You open your pack to put it in, but suddenly it comes alive in your fingers, snakes quickly up your arm and attempts to wrap itself around your neck. You struggle to cut the rope with your sword before its grip tightens. But you are lucky, and you cut the rope and it drops down to the ground. And finally, you may leave through the north door. The passageway ahead leads you northwards. The rocky floor becomes sandy until eventually you are walking on some sort of coarse sand. You notice the passage is widening, and ahead you can hear a flowing river. You continue until you find yourself in a large cavern through which a river flows. You are on the south bank of an underground river facing across its black depths. There appear to be 4 ways of crossing. To your left, a rusted bell bears the sign, "Ferry service, 2 gold pieces, please ring." There is a small raft in front of you on the bank with the long stick resting beside it. You could punt across the river. A rickety old bridge crosses on the right. If you don't trust any of these, you may swim. Which will you choose? The bell gives a dull clang, and after a few moments you see a withered old man climb into a small rowing boat moored on the north bank. He rows slowly across to you, moors the boat and limps towards you. He asks you for 3 gold pieces. When you protest at the price, he mumbles some flimsy excuse about inflation. He begins to get angry at your protestations. Do you pay him the 3 gold pieces or threaten him? He doesn't take at all kindly to your threats. As you argue and his anger builds, you notice a transformation taking place. He begins to straighten up and grows physically stronger in front of your very eyes. His face and arms grow hairy, his teeth become sharp and pointed. You must make a quick decision. Will you offer him 5 gold pieces to calm him down, or you prepare to attack him? He now stands just under 2 meters tall. He advances towards you. His body is hairy, his teeth are pointed, his eyes flash. His fingernails are sharp claws, his nose has become a rat-like snout. He is a were-rat. After you've battled were-rat, you've inflicted some dangerous wounds and you defeated him. The were-rat slumps to the ground. You search his body and find 2 gold pieces, his fare from the last crossing. You curse him for trying to overcharge you. You add 2 gold pieces to your goal and row yourself across to the river. As you moor the boat on the north bank, you look back at the body. It has vanished. You leave the room and open the box in the passage. Inside you find a single piece of gold and a small mouse, which must have been the creature's pet. You could keep the coin and release the mouse, which scurries off down the passageway. Facing northwards, the rock face is smooth and glistening with moisture. Moss of many different hues grows on surface. There is an eerie silence, punctuated only by splashings of the river as it flows behind you. You have 3 options. A passage runs off to the northwest. A large timber door is directly in front of you in the middle of the rock face. And there is another passage that runs along the river eastwards. The passageway runs eastwards. Ahead of you, you can see that a solid-looking door blocks the passage. You step up to investigate. A sign above the door reads, "Boathouse." The door is firmly locked, but a small barred window allows you to look inside. You can see a number of skeleton men working on building a boat of some sort. They move in series of quick, jerky actions, rather insect-like. If you have the key clearly labeled "Boathouse," you can try and open the door. If you want to try to break the door down, or would you like to return to the riverbank and try another route? There is no way you are going to charge the door down, as it is 12 centimeters of solid oak. You bruise your sword arm in an attempt. You realize that you can only get through the door if you have the boathouse key. So you'll have to return back to the riverbank and try again. You return to the riverbank and decide to try the door in the middle of the rock face. You find yourself in a short, narrow passageway with the door ahead to the north. You try this door. The door squeaks open on rusty hinges. The room is dark and your eyes begin to adjust themselves as you close the door behind you. You hear a shuffling in the room, but before you can react, a blow to your head knocks you senseless. You awake with the throbbing head and look around. The room is about 8 meters square, with doors to the north and south. You have been dumped in the southwest corner. Standing motionless in the center of the room are 4 men. At least, they appear to be men. Their skin is a greeny grey color, their clothes are tattered and torn, and they're all staring vacantly at the ceiling. One carries a club, one a scythe, one an axe, and one a pick. They are ignoring you completely. Around the room are various peasant-style weapons: pitchforks, axe handlers, pointed sticks, 1 or 2 shields, and several barrels. In the northeast corner is a human corpse with a sword in one hand and a shield in another. You move your hand up to your head to feel the signs of blood, and you're relieved to find you're not bleeding. But as your hand moves, the strange creatures in the center of the room turns their eyes down towards you. Do you try to talk to them? Jump to your feet and charge them with your sword, or scramble for an exit through the south door? Your head hurts and you feel dizzy as you rise to your feet. The 4 men stir into action and move towards you in a single file with their weapons ready. You grope your way down the wall for the south door, but it will be touch and go whether you make it. Your foot slips on a loose pebble and you fall onto the ground. Before you can regain your footing, the creatures are upon you. The 4 creatures shuffling towards you are mindless zombies. Their vacant eyes suggest that their actions are controlled by a will which is not their own. You're still too dizzy to think properly, but you must act quickly. The first zombie reaches you and prepares to swing his club. You must fight him. And after a long battle, 1 by 1, zombies were killed down. The poor wretches lying dead at your feet almost look happy to be relieved of the burden of life. But as you look down at them, you sense that you are not the only one to know of their deaths. Looking around the room, you may investigate the weapons lying around, or go over to the dead body in the northeast corner, or check the barrels. The barrels contain a clear brown liquid. You sniff it. It smells like rum. You taste it. It is rum. You cup your hands, pour some in and take a swig. You gasp, "By golly, it's good." A noise startles you, prompting you to leave the room quickly. You walk up to investigate the north door. The door opens and you find yourself in a dark crypt of some kind. The room is very large. At one end is an altar and various coffins are strewn about the room. There is a door behind you in the south wall and also one in the west wall. If you want to investigate the room further, you can do so, or if the place gives you the creeps, you can leave via the west door. The silence is deathly. A slow drip startles you as you creep around the coffins. The altar is ornately carved and studded with jewels. Beautifully woven drapes hang from the walls, although they are threadbare in places. There are 3 coffins in the room. A creaking noise makes you whirl around and the light from your lantern falls on the largest coffin. It is opening. As you watch, a tall man with white face sits upright. His eyes open and fall upon you. His expression changes from one of tranquility to one of abject hate. His mouth opens and a terrifying hiss comes from his throat. His teeth are wolf-like. He beckons you to come over. Do you approach him as he wishes? Do you draw your sword and prepare to fight? Or reach into your bag for another means of attack? Or try to run for the western door? As you swing your sword at the creature, it reaches out and catches the blade in its hand. Your weapon is almost ineffective against the considerable strength of the creature. You realize this and panic, but you must fight on. The fight was long and hard, but eventually you strike the vampire down. The body on the floor turns visibly older in front of your eyes. The face looks 50, then 90, then well over 100 years old. The skin rots and the eyes decompose as you watch. You notice a movement coming from the creature's chest. As the remnants of the vampire decay, a small black face breaks through its chest. It resembles a small black shrew, but as it frees itself and unfurls its wings, you realize it is a bat. You lunge at it, but it flaps away into the darkness. You search the whole chamber quickly. Yes, remember, there are several other coffins here, and find 30 gold pieces, a book, and a white-shaped stick. You decide to take all of the items, and now you can leave through the western door. And thus ends the first chapter of Joan's adventure through the Firetop Mountain. Thank you for listening.